So I wanted to talk about books today. Um, there's so much great information out there on the internet that people oftentimes forget books. And I am a strong proponent. This is just a little bit of my library of buying books and pouring through them for a number of reasons. And there's two books I'm going to talk about. So I thought about it like, I have a lot of guitars, but I said to myself, I also have a lot of books. Sometimes I'll talk about them. And I said, well, if I had to distill it down to a few books that I learned the most, or I feel like, should be in every jazz guitarist or just guitarists or anybody who wants to get better at the craft, that should be in their library. There's a couple. There's two in particular I want to talk about, and this is probably going to be a little bit longer than usual. But before I did that, I kind of Googled and said, okay, what are the top jazz guitar books? And some of them you'll be aware of. And so there's, I might put the link down here, but there's a couple of them, and I found out I had three of them, at least in the top 10. So when I Googled this, I found The Advancing Guitarist by Mick Goodrick. Very, very good book. Complete Jazz Guitar Method by Jody Fisher. Also, great educator. Chords and Chord Progression for Jazz by Arnie Berle. That is one of the two books that I'll be talking about. Jazz Guitar Single Note Soloing by Ted Greene. I have that. Great book. Chord Chemistry. Excellent book, but way over most people's head. And I might mention a little bit more about that. Best of West Montgomery. Number 7 was the Berklee Jazz Chord Dictionary. The Mickey Baker book, I have that. The Mickey Baker Complete Course in Jazz Guitar. Number 9 is the Joe Pass Guitar Method. I have that book. Number 10 is Linear Expressions. So I'll stop there. My two books that I want to talk about that I think are, there's so much information in them that it's a must that everybody should go through. And they're not necessarily number 1 and number 2. One is this book that they put number 10 by Pat Martino, Linear Expressions. This book is, it's not very complicated, but yes, it is. Yeah, at the same time, it is, in terms of if you really, really understand what he's getting at. So first of all, Pat, to me, was not just a brilliant player. He was a brilliant educator. Again, even though I said let's talk about books, if you go online and you see his whole concept of diminish lines and things of that nature, you'll figure out that the guy was a genius. But let's talk about this book and what makes it so useful. First of all, it's got a beautiful introduction or forward. Just a few things on that, because the following linear expressions are a form of art. In Webster's dictionary, the definition of the word art is stated that art implies a personal, unanalyzable creative power. Can't analyze it. Whereas the word skill stresses technical knowledge and proficiency. And in both cases, the word arduous is stated as that which is hard to accomplish or achieve with difficulty, marked by a great labor or effort. Basically, he's telling you, you're going to have to do some heavy lifting to really understand it. And at some level, some of this stuff you're not going to be able to always analyze. But let's analyze what we can. So there's a couple more things about this that's very, very good. But if you can understand page number 7 and page number 9, you will uncover a really great systematic way of mapping out the fingerboard. So what Pat does is he starts off with, first of all, it assumes a little bit of, might assume a lot more knowledge, because I didn't start off by looking at this book first when I first started playing guitar. So it probably assumes some level of knowledge. It goes right into the idea of inversions, and it uses the minor 7 and major forms as well. But it starts off with the G minor 7, and he shows you a 4 chord form of the G minor 7. So again, you can transpose all of this stuff, but you start off with G minor 7, then inversion number 1, then inversion number 2, inversion number 3. Okay? So he uses those 4 chords. And all an inversion is, simply put, is the same chords. They're all G minor 7th, but they're ordered differently. So in each of them, one of the things about books, sometimes they are not that clear. Within this, you'll see what the voicing looks like. So in this case, he's got it for you as on the 6th string is the root. Then you've got on the 4th string the flat 7th. On the 3rd string, you've got the flatted 3rd. Then you've got on the 2nd string, you've got the 5th. Then on this one, first inversion, you've got the flat 3rd, 1, 5th, and flatted 7. Okay? And on this one, you've got the 5th, the flatted 3rd, flatted 7th, and the 1. That G. And then right here, you've got the flatted 7th, 5th, 1, and a flatted 3rd. Okay. I'm running through this. He has them written down for you. So as you look at the forms, you can kind of look at the notes and you can know what degree of the scale it falls in. So it's very, very good and very easy to kind of follow. So that's the first thing he does. 1, you learn about inversions. 2, you learn about spelling out the voicings in and of themselves. So that's beautiful. So really, I've used this, and this is the way I structure my playing. This is the way I've mapped out the fingerboard. It's the most intuitive way I've ever seen, put it that way. So that's in G minor 7th. Then he goes, and this one you have to kind of connect a little bit, and I was able to do it probably over a course of a couple of years, it feels like it. But he has 5 fingerings. And basically, since they're G minor 7th, you remember my whole idea about playing over minor 7th is like every minor chord has a relative chord. So in the case of G minor, the relative major scale is a B flat. So basically, all you're basically doing is you're playing these 5 forms, but they're basically forms of B flat major. You can think of it that way if you know your major scale. So anyway, so you've got this. And what's beautiful about it is, within each of the way he's got the lines written out, I should say the actual scale, you have the chord or the inversions noted in terms of the scale tones. So for example, you've got this first chord, which is a G minor 7th, and then the scale looks like this the way he has it written. Okay? You can see all these notes in the scale. So it's very, very easy just visually looking at it when you look at the paper to see where that falls. So then the next one is form number 2. You can see these notes. You can see the scale tones, if you can see that. And then so on and so forth. Okay? And he does this 5 forms. I'm not going to go through all 5 forms, but that's on page 9. So basically, if you take the time to go through all of the different line forms and all the different inversions, and then you learn them in all 12 keys, you will be able to map out the fingerboard, and because it just repeats itself. So this is right where you started, and it starts all over again. So you've got that, and then you learn the scale associated with that voicing of the what you'd call the inversions. Let's put it that way. So anyway, it's a mouthful, but it is an excellent, excellent, excellent book, and it's one that you should really spend the time with. Go a lot deeper with that, and learn that stuff in all the different keys. You will learn how to spell out the voicings. You will learn the different scales, and whether you call them minor scales, whether you call them relative major scales, that's irrelevant. Get them under your hands. That's the thing that's really good about that. Next up, the next one that's up. So you've got this book. Not necessarily number 1, but it's one of 2, right? This one, maybe you'll say it's number 1 or number 2. It's so good. If you're still watching this video, I have 2 copies of it. That's how good this book is. Jazz and Popular Guitar by Arnie Berle. This is to me the best chord book around, and it's because of its simplicity and its utility from get go. Great forward. He talks about open chords. He talks about bar chords, and he talks about jazz chords. He uses a bunch of songs in there. Very intuitive, and he talks about inversions. So between those two chords, I'm not going to go into all of this stuff right now because this will be a really long video. Between those two books, you will learn a wealth of information. And, and like I said earlier, the reasons that I personally like books, even over videos, is that you actually have to think. I think between good books and records or listening to music, it's a better system than just watching somebody tell you put one finger here and one finger there. You really have to think when you have to sit there and read the forward, look at the chord chart. So you're actively learning, not watching somebody's hands and yes, associate. Oh yeah, he's playing an F sharp, so he's on the second fret. So those are my two favorite books, or the two books I think I got the most out of. A couple of books I would say honorable mentions, but they're very good. Ted Greene's book, Jazz Guitar Single Note Soloing, both volume 1 and 2. Another one, Joe Pass, Guitar Style. Great book. Yeah, by the master himself. And this one right here, I picked this up years ago, and it's by Garrison Fuel, Jazz Improvisation. It's very good. It assumes it's not big. You can go through them, but I've been going through this stuff for over 10, 15, 20 years. And every time I go through them, I learn something else. And last but not least, I want to give a shout out or an honorable mention to Just Jazz Guitar books. I have a bunch of them lying around the house, and I probably should have really saved them. They've been out of print, but they have lessons in them. They have interviews in them. And I used to order them. This is from May 2003 with Phil Upchurch on the front of the book itself. It was a magazine, and it was, to me, it was a way of life. It came out, I believe, quarterly, and I ordered them. I've got a lot of them here, and I'll go through them, and they're just great. So I love them. It's just to read about them. So anyway, this is a really long video if you've made it this far. But man, I love this stuff, and there's more to the music than just hoping you get better. There's a lot of work to be put in, but it's all fun, and it'll make you smarter at the end of the day. All right, then. Thank you for watching. Practice, and practice some more.